check it out. Dark lips, girl. Hey guys, it's Jenny. Welcome back once again to Solid Gold. For the past 3 weeks, I've been doing a series of updates on the goldfish that I have out in my fish room because I have so many fish now that I can't possibly fit them all into one video without like boring you guys to death. The first 2 updates were about my group of male butterfly telescope goldfish, and then we took a little detour and talked about my G-Kings last week, and this week we are coming back to look at the butterfly telescopes, and we're going to look at my female butterfly telescopes. This group of fish also lives in one of my Intex wading pools. These pools are about 90 to 100 gallons in capacity, and they're really great because they're super portable, super cheap also, might I add, and they can hold a lot of goldfish because of their large capacity. So I have 3 of them in my fish room, and my female butterfly telescopes live in one of them. Like I said before in one of my previous videos, it really irks me that I have so few females compared to how many males I have. I have found, for whatever reason, the females tend to be a little bit more delicate, at least for me and in my experience. I don't know if they're just a little bit more prone to health problems or what. Also, maybe they're less common on the market. I don't know. I'm just speculating. It seems like whenever I find a goldfish that I like, I see breeding stars and I'm like, oh, it's a male again, of course. So I find it a lot more difficult to find good quality female breeders. But I don't know, that might just be me for whatever reason. I don't know. But I'm really happy with the group of 5 that I do have. I love them to pieces. A lot of these are ones that have either been with me for a long time or I actually bred myself, and thus they've kind of been with me for a long time and I'm more attached to them. The first one that I want to talk about in this tank is Sophie. If Clyde is the king of the fish room, Sophie is definitely the queen of the fish room. I got her at the exact same time as Clyde. They were really small when I first got them. They were so small, in fact, that they were both put in the same shipping bag, which usually when you buy fish from Dandy Randas, they're always shipped in their own shipping bag just for safety reasons, and they're big fish so they kind of need to be. But these 2 were shipped in the same bag, and it's the first time I'd ever gotten fish from Dandy Randas that were both shipped together in one bag, so I was kind of surprised and taken aback, but they were just fine. They were small enough that it was okay for them. When I first got Sophie, she was a tricolor. She was mostly black. You could see like where the black had barely started to recede. There was some red color peeking through under that, and then her belly was white. I kind of always knew that she was gonna change color, but surprisingly her black color held on there for a really long time. I don't think it started changing until a couple of years ago. So it held on for a relatively long time, I would say. Longer than I expected, so I thought it was pretty cool. It looked really cool as it was changing because the black color would like slowly recede, and when it receded it was a pretty sharp line still between the black and the red color and then the red and the white color. So she looked really cool for a while there when she was a perfect looking tricolor goldfish. Just so awesome. Sophie does have an issue, unfortunately. She developed this habit of just kind of resting on the bottom, and I don't know which issue came first, because her first issue, well, one of her issues is that she sits on the bottom face down, kind of, with her tail sticking up and then her face sitting down at the bottom. Either because of that or the other way around, her peduncle actually flops over to one side, which is really strange because it's supposed to be like a muscle, right, in there that helps control the tail, but it just kind of lost its rigidity or its ability to support itself. Maybe she got too big, maybe her tail fin got too big, I don't know, but her peduncle is flopped over to one side permanently. There's no getting it back to the right way it's supposed to be. It's just permanently flopped over to one side. So it makes her kind of sit face down, and then her peduncle flops over, and then her tail flops over more to one side of her body than the other. I have honestly thought about several times over the past year euthanizing her, but I just can't bring myself to do it because she looks in perfect health. Her scales look great, her skin looks great, her eyes are clear. She doesn't appear to be in any pain, really. I mean, I don't know. It's so hard to judge with fish, you know, if they're in pain or not, but she still moves around, she still eats, she still looks really healthy. She doesn't have any sores anywhere on her body, nothing. So I just kind of figure that she's kind of like in goldfish hospice care at this point now, and she can just live out the rest of her days like that. I knew that for Sophie I had to keep her in one of my Intex pools as opposed to like the Black Laguna tub or an aquarium, for instance. Like I talked about in my video a few weeks ago, it has rounded sides because of the way it bulges out from the weight of the water. That really helps her when she's trying to get around, because fish that have issues swimming like she does tend to really get stuck in corners. They'll follow the edge of the aquarium and then they'll get to a corner and they'll try to move one way, but they'll get blocked by that edge. They'll try to move the other way and they'll get blocked by the other edge. And then they're just they kind of give up and they just kind of sit in the corner. I decided to keep her in this Intex pool because there's really no corners. Since it bulges out on the sides, it kind of creates like a nice rounded corner all around the entire thing. And so she can just tootle around the edge, never getting stuck in any corners, and it is just like heaven for her. She's only 3 years old, so I kind of want to address this because in the first video in this series that I made a few weeks ago, I said that I think the fancy goldfish life expectancy is a little bit shorter than what we usually like to say a goldfish life expectancy is. Usually when we say like, oh, a goldfish can live up to 20 years, that's true for certain varieties of goldfish, like the comets, the commons, the shabunkins, the ones that have body shapes that are more close to the original fish that they were bred from. You see what I'm saying? But with the fancy varieties, like the telescopes, like the crown pearl scales, the more and more modified they get, and I think a butterfly telescope is pretty far on the modified side of the spectrum. The more modified they get, the shorter their lifespan is, and it's just because they're more prone to certain issues like swim bladder problems, I guess peduncle flopping over, you can add to that list, I don't know. But they just don't seem to be as long-lived as their single-tailed cousins. I have this habit of like assuming that everyone else knows everything that's in my head because it's in my head and I think about it constantly, so I just kind of assume that everyone else is like on the same page as me. So I probably should have explained that a little bit better in that video because I did get a few questions about it. But I'm not the first one to notice this phenomenon, I guess, of the really fancy modified types not living as long. It's been talked about on goldfish forums before and Facebook groups. It's not to say that there aren't fancy goldfish that have lived, 10 or more years, because there certainly are. Recently on my Facebook page, I actually asked you guys what's the oldest goldfish that you have, and some of you had like orandas that had lived several years, and it was just like amazing to me. So like I said, it's not to say that a fancy, really modified goldfish can't live that long, it's just that they usually don't, and I would say the average lifespan from what I've heard from others and from what I've experienced is honestly closer to like 5 to 7 years for a really modified fancy goldfish type. So yeah, that's kind of some bad news, I guess. Sorry. So anyway, back to Sophie. She is still apparently in perfect health, and she still gets around just fine, just kind of in her own way. Then also in this tank I have Lana. She is my female black butterfly telescope. I got her at the same time as Loki, so about a year ago today. She is the mother to my fairly recent group of black butterfly telescope babies that I had. Loki was the father. It could have been either Loki or Mordecai though, to be honest. That particular pairing did not produce very good butterfly tails in their fry. Most of them were kind of like, they didn't come out on a horizontal plane. They were more pinched like a regular fantail tail or like a regular telescope tail. Some of them did have really beautifully spread butterfly tails, but it was a lower percentage than with the fry that came from Sophie. Kind of interesting to see that variation in the offspring that can be produced from different seed fish or different parent fish. For some reason, and I don't know how this happened, but one of Lana's eyes has a dent in it. I'm assuming that she probably bumped into something at some point and maybe it got dented from that, or she bumped into something and then it later caved in or something. I don't know. And I just like to say that it adds to her character. She has held her black for a really long time, the entire time I've had her so far. Cross your fingers, because that can always change with goldfish. If you have kept goldfish, you know that the black color in goldfish is really, really unstable, and even a goldfish that's black for a good portion of its life can suddenly start to lose that color, and there will be like orange or red and white or orange and white underneath that black color. But so far that hasn't happened to her. She's really held on to her black color, which I fully appreciate. Then I have Gwen. I've always liked the name Gwen or Guinevere or Gwyneth. Guinevere is actually a version of the name Jennifer, which is my name. So I think of it as the cooler version of Jennifer. So I decided to name one of my fish Gwen. I've had Gwen for about a year. I did not pick her out myself. If I had, I probably maybe would have passed on her because her eyes are just so big, and the longer I have her, the more her eyes grow and her body doesn't really catch up. So that's not really the kind of butterfly telescope that I like and try to produce. I actually prefer like an understated eye size, a little bit smaller. Their eyes tend to keep growing after their body stops growing or slows down growing, and I don't like that look when the eyes are like so big and they're like wiggling around as the fish swims. So she's kind of got that going on, but she's still lovable and endearing in her own way. I do love that she has this like red patch right on the top in the center of her head, but then the rest of her is calico with very little red throughout her body and just more of like blues and blacks throughout her body. I think that color pattern is really cool. And then I also have Lincoln. Lincoln is one of the butterflies that I bred about 2 years ago. Oh my gosh! I named Lincoln before I really knew that she was a female, so it's kind of like a boyish name, I guess, for a female. But I was thinking about it, and I actually kind of like boyish names for girls. A good example would be Billy, but spelled with an I-E. I love that name for girls. I think it's adorable. Lincoln, for some reason, just never really particularly stands out to me. I think it's just because she's mostly like orange. Doesn't really have an interesting color pattern per se. I kept her because she has a really nice body shape, a nice butterfly tail, and her eyes weren't excessively large. So I like that about her. I just kind of wish that she had like a more interesting color pattern. Not every fish can have a super interesting color pattern. You gotta show them all a little bit of love. You know what I'm saying? And last but certainly not least is Queenie. Queenie is, I guess I would say, the queen in training of the fish room, because she is my favorite of any of the goldfish that I've ever bred myself. Just look at her. The color pattern is so interesting. It's almost like piebald because it's so varied, like red and white patches just kind of mixed in there, all crazy like. She's got a perfect shaped body, really nice sized eyes that are symmetrical and they're not like crazy big or anything. She's got a huge, beautiful, almost like fluffy looking butterfly tail because it's got all these like ripples in it at the end, and it curls around back towards her head on the edges, and it's got a perfect split down the middle, and she's just like, she's a beautiful fish. I bred her also from the mother, being Sophie, about 2 years ago. She was one of the ones from the batch that I knew from like 10 weeks old that I was keeping her. Couldn't believe that I had produced a fish with that color pattern. It was just awesome. So yeah, she's obviously my favorite one, probably in this whole group. I would really be interested to try pairing her with Clyde and seeing what the babies from those two look like. I think that would be really interesting to see. So there's my lovely little group of girls. That's about all I have to say about them, I suppose. Okay, can I just say that you guys are awesome? I ordered originally 125 of these calendars and I'm completely sold out now. Completely sold out. The goal was, and I hoped that I would sell out of them, but I sold out way sooner than I thought I would, which is awesome. I did place a reorder, so don't worry if you didn't get yours yet, you still can. They're actually still available on my website. You can still purchase them. They're just on back order right now, and they'll be ready to ship out on January 12th or thereabouts. And I will still write your little happy birthday message on the calendar square for your birthday if you let me know when your birthday is when you're checking out. And also don't forget that there is a giveaway only for people who purchase the calendars and then send in their little postcard to me that enters them in the giveaway. There's going to be a giveaway every single month of 2017, and it's going to be one of my original drawings. So really, I just want to thank you guys for supporting me and supporting what I'm doing with Solid Gold in buying these calendars. You're really helping me to be able to put more time and energy into every video that I make and produce even more goldfish content for you guys. Thanks for joining me for another goldfish video. I'll see you next time, and until then, stay gold. It's a bright light. Can you tone it down, light? Come on. I feel a sneeze coming on.